are a blended family.
We 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 are a blended family.
We're a blended family.
We are a blended family.
We are a blended family.
We are a blended family.
And we are a blended family.
In today's episode of Blended Families Ministry, we'll showcase Drs. Larry and Carol Snapp in a dream conference this year, and I'm sure it's going to be power-packed and you will enjoy. Have a wonderful day. God bless you, and thank you for tuning in and sharing Christian Living Radio with your friends and family. God bless you.
Hi, we're Drs. Larry and Carol Snapp. We're glad to have you with us today.
We're the founders of Blended Families Ministry. We've been teaching the curriculum that we wrote for almost 9 years here. It's being used in several other churches in the Valley and even other states. We just don't know where all of us. They've been to these things, they got the curriculum, they take it somewhere. Who knows?
All over the place.
So, yeah, and it's even, and we've sent books to other countries even. But the big thing about this is, how can you guys minister to the blended families? And we found out at a conference last year, about 40% of a church's congregation is going to be blended families. Now, Carol's got a whole bunch of what is a blended family anyway, kind of examples, but I'm going to try not to steal her notes.
He always does that. He says, I don't need to make notes. I'm getting my bullet points, and that's all I need. And then I do my little scratch stuff, and I go over, okay, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this.
Pray for him.
Anyway, we've been married 37 years, but he still does that. Anyhow, we only have about 30 minutes to really give you the groundwork of this ministry. And so I'm going to ask that you hold your questions to the end, because at the end we're going to do about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A. You all have the notes in the back page. There is another page for notes, so write your questions as we go along, please. And yes, 40%, at least 40% are blended families today. That's in the church and outside of the church. And actually, if people were honest, that would be even higher. And the reason it is higher is because I'm going to tell you what is considered a blended family. Because a lot of people only think it's remarriage. It's not. It is remarriage after a divorce or after the loss of a spouse. It's also different cultures coming together, different religions coming together, geographical difference, like somebody from the East Coast married somebody from the South. The food is different, how they celebrate the holidays is different, age difference. When you're in love, 10, 15 years doesn't seem like a lot. 5 years down the road, you think, what did I do? A lot of them come to us for counseling saying, I didn't even think what was going to happen 5 years after we got married. Adoption is another type of blending. And at the age of 40, we became stepkids. We never thought that scenario would happen. But people are living longer. So when my dad died and when Larry's dad died, our moms were by themselves, and they thought, I want to go out to dinner, I want to go to a movie, I want somebody with me. So they both remarried. So at the age of 40, we became stepkids. And that's happening more and more these days. And then also, there's a lot of, recently we've had people that have had kids out of wedlock. And they've been the mom and the dad forever. And then now they finally get God back in their life, and they meet somebody and they decide they want to get married. How do you pass over the reins or part of the mantle to the man? Because you've been both. And the same with a guy that's been a mom and a dad to the kids. So that's also a type of blending. Being married for the first time when you're used to being the whole ball of wax yourself. And we have had as many as 3 and 4 different types of blending in one relationship. For example, husband is Spanish, the wife's Caucasian. He's Catholic, she's Baptist. They both have kids from other marriages or other relationships, so there's yours and mine. And then maybe she's pregnant with theirs, so it's yours, mine, and ours, which is another scenario we're familiar with. One of those issues is hard enough for someone to overcome, but 4 of them, and this is very common today. Believe me, we've been marriage counselors for 14 years, and we've seen that a lot. Anyway, like I said, we've been married for 37 years. We didn't do it right. We thought we did, but then God told us, as we were counseling for like the first 5 years, then he told us, you know how not to do it. You know how not to be a blended family. Now you know my way to be a blended family. Write curriculum, teach others to teach it. And I want you to restore one man, one woman, one child in one home at a time. Get me back in the home where I belong and let them take this global. I want everybody to teach their friends and their families how they can blend together. And all God's children are blended. He's colorblind. He sees everybody the same. We're all the same. We're all a blended family. And as we were writing the first curriculum, we've written nine books. They're all over there. And 3 different curriculum. And as we were writing the first one, God pointed out even a first marriage is a blending, because it's your family and your spouse's family, and you're blending 2 families right from the get-go. And they don't always get along. There's always somebody that's a little weird out there. We were asked to speak 2 weeks ago at the Grand Canyon University here in town. And they gave us a topic, and we had never thought of our ministry like this before, but it kind of opened up a new area for us. They wanted us to speak on how our ministry is transforming culture within the community. And we told them, we're teaching one man, one woman, teaching others to teach. And we have just within this community a lot of pastors that send their leaders and associate pastors to us to train them to use our curriculum, and then they go back to their church and then they can teach their people there, and they raise up people there to do the same thing. But we reach out to them all the time, and we also do it. Every class we do ourselves is open to the community. We do our classes here like on Sunday mornings from 9 to 10:15, giving people time to get back to their church for 11 or 11:30 service at their church. And we have events all the time. Julian knows. We invite him all the time. But we have a big one coming up Friday. It's called Roses and Chocolate. The women get long stem roses. The men get the Hershey's Solid Kiss chocolate. We have a Christian comedian couple coming in from Nashville, Tennessee. We have appetizers and desserts, and we just have a good time. We have 28 different churches. People coming from 28 different churches this year. Last year we had 20, and this year we have 28. So God is up to something with this ministry, and we're just here to get the word out. I'm going to let Larry, because these are all my notes.
That's all yours.
Let you do yours.
Okay, so in any particular church, like I said, about 40% of the congregation is going to probably have been married before, they're remarried, or they're in a relationship or something, and they both have kids and all that kind of stuff. But especially after a divorce, a lot of people, even in the church, feel like damaged goods. Right? And even the people in the church look at them kind of, well, you screwed up, you messed up, you're second class, and things like that. So even it's hard for, especially a divorced couple. That's the primary. There's all those different kinds of blended, but the post-divorce is the one that we deal with the most. And what the church should be doing is bringing them in, recognizing that they exist, right? But a big part of the problem is most of the pastors are never blended, right? I mean, they're first marriage, forever and ever, They really don't know how to deal with that. They don't have a personal experience. I inherited 3 kids, 37 years ago. And so, like Carol said, we did some things right, we did some things wrong. But now we know God's way. So, but to reach 40% of the church, how do you do that, right? Well, we have 3 different curriculums. We have the Beyond Divorce, and we have premarital for blended families, and then we have I guess you'd call it postmarital. So a lot of churches have divorce care. We call ours Beyond Divorce because most everybody that goes through it are the ones that didn't want the divorce. They're the ones that got thrown away, right? So they really hurt. They've been betrayed and just thrown away. So there's a lot of wounds, and they really need some healing and some stuff like that. But this particular curriculum ministers to those that have been left behind. And it's not the kind of support group where everybody sits around and they trash the ex, right? One of the guys that went through the class at the end of it, we have it like everybody does an essay, and it's like, I've been with you people for like 10 weeks. I don't know anything about your exes, right? It's not about them. Right. It's about you and that person. So it's taking them from, okay, you've been betrayed, you've been left behind, you've been thrown away. Let's get past that. Get you whole again. Okay? So that's how we work with that set, is just trying to get them healed. There's a lot of pain that they have to deal with. We try to give them an understanding of that process that they need to go through to get from here to here. Okay? And then there's the premarital. So now we've taken the divorcee or divorced person and we've gotten them from a mess to somewhat whole. Now they're at least in a position to maybe be in a relationship, right? We want to get them ready to be in a relationship. So now we have a premarital thing where we really, we want to let them know where all these landmines are going to be. Now, you've been married before, you have kids, you're probably going to marry somebody that's been married before, probably has kids. There's a lot of landmines, right? And most people say, oh, well, we just love each other and it's all going to be good. And then they get married and it's like, and they just start stepping on all these landmines. And so we give them what we've been doing now is twice a year we have an all-day seminar just for premarital. So it's something we used to do couple to couple. We give them, it's a 12-week thing. Here's 3, do 3. Come meet us for a couple hours. We'll go through it, and then go do another 3. And then so we meet 4 times. And part of their goal is to get to the end of this thing and have at least a vision and a roadmap for what their marriage is going to be like. Not just the wedding. Everybody plans for the wedding, but they don't plan for everything after that. So that's part of the premarital counseling. We ask a lot of questions. Why now? Why this person? Are you healed from that? And we need answers to those questions. We help them realize the pyramid over here. We want them, that's the goal. Feel free to take a picture of that. But in all our years of counseling, we
This is Christian Living Radio.
Figured out, and God gave us all these different lines and numbers and all this stuff. Everybody does the triangle in the marriage ministry. Right?
Can you read those? Because I can't see. There we go. I know, I'm kind of young enough.
Well, you can pass it around.
Yeah.
Why don't you just
That's
pass
good.
it?
I just wanted to see.
We can do this.
Just pass it.
So obviously, any marriage ministry has God at the top and the husband and the wife at the bottom. And the whole point of the thing is as each, the husband and the wife, as they get closer to God, they get closer together. But especially in regards to a blended family, we have to be in God's order here, or it's not going to work.
And we say this is God's priority pyramid for relationships because we have singles in the class wanting to know where they messed up before in a relationship. They want to know what they should be looking for the next time around. We have dating couples and engaged couples in the class, as well as married couples in the class. We even have couples that don't have a problem, but they like to come into our class because they want the accountability. They want to hear the teaching each week and know they're still on the right track. So we have all kinds in our ministry.
Yeah. And throughout the years of counseling, we really saw there's, a couple, maybe 7 or 8 things that everybody does. It's not like there's 185 problems and you got all of them. There's a handful of basic stuff that everybody screws up, right? So that's kind of where that came from. Obviously, God has to be first. But if you're in a do-over situation, how many times have you heard, well, my kids come first? Mm-hmm. Well, where does that put the spouse? Mm-hmm. Right? So God's first. Your spouse has to be next. The marriage has to be next. Because the whole point of this family unit is for the parents to be showing the kids how to do marriage from God's perspective. And if you're showing the kids how they come first, when they get married, they're going to come first. So God's first, then the marriage, then the parent-child relationship. Again, the role of a parent is to train up the child in the way they should go.
Sure.
And a blended family, we hear it all the time. My kid, your kid. The whole concept here in a blended family that's going to be a godly family is these are God's kids. I'm the steward of what God has given. And if it's got to be stewardship over ownership. If parents own their kids, the spouse is not going to be where the spouse needs to be. And then after that, it's with all the in-laws and the outlaws, exes, friends, everybody else. You got the immediate household, and obviously in a blended family, you've got some kids that are over there, some kids that are over here, back and forth. One of those things that really was brought to my attention one time was after divorce, especially, when I was growing up, the house I lived in was my house. But as I was talking to someone that had been divorced, their kid left a backpack somewhere and says, hey, Mom, I left my backpack at Dad's house. Mm-hmm. So that's Mom's house and Dad's house. Mm-hmm. And I just go in between, mm-hmm. Right? So the kids are always the one that lose. So the whole purpose of this is whatever marriage you're on now, make it the last one. Till death do us part. Okay? So you've got your extended family, which is all the in-laws, outlaws, everybody else, and exes. Then your job. Sorry. Then the ministry. Okay?
With the boundaries learned.
Yeah. All these things need boundaries, healthy boundaries. Because everybody's got crazy Uncle Harry out there. You just have to have boundaries. Ministry, a lot of times, this is a pastor conference. How many pastors that put the ministry above even the marriage? Mm-hmm. Right? God's first, but the ministry is 1.2. Right? Ministry is a job. So you can flip-flop job, career, or ministry. It's a job, but it needs to be down here. And your first ministry needs to be your spouse, which reinforces having your marriage up there at number 2. So whenever we're counseling anybody, what's out of order? That's the first thing we look at. what's out of order because something's out of order and it's probably the parent-child thing. Or it could be finances. I mean, there's a lot of things, but mostly it's a parental thing. Yeah, we get along great when it's just us. It's when the kids are around. All hell breaks loose. Right? Well, it's because one parent is, making an obvious distinction between my kids and your kids. So, trying to get that concept in your head for the blended family is that your job is to be a steward of whoever's kid it is. It could be 3 or 4 different parents there, right? But you have the opportunity as a step parent to be a mentor, a positive influence, and one of God's kids. And then we have stewards to 18 to 25 years. There's some point in there where you have to give the kid back to God. So you're the steward, again, not an owner, because you wouldn't have to give them back if you were the owner. You're the steward because God has loaned them to you, because then He wants them back after you've raised them up. Now, God never asked you for the spouse back.
I can't find that in the Bible. That's yours.
Job. Job never lost his wife. God didn't ask for the wife. He took the kids, he took all his other stuff, and then He gave him all the stuff back. So he had double the number of kids, but he only had the one wife. So, in God's kingdom, one spouse till death do us part. So, but He's always about do-overs, right? Saw somebody post something the other day that divorce is a sin. Well, not really. It's there's, and this is kind of a surprise to me a while back. Somebody told me that in Jeremiah chapter 3, verses 8 through 10, God gives Israel a certificate of divorce. Because it's the sin that leads up to a divorce. The divorce is a legal transaction that separates. But it's all the sin that's taking place that leads up to that. God had to do it. And if God doesn't, it's not a sin. Okay? So that's one way to reach out to the divorced people, is to just let them know, hey, even God had to do this. Not to make it like okay, but just know it's because a lot of people think it's a sin. And it's important to let them know that it's the sin that happened that created the situation. This is what needs to be dealt with. But like I said in the beginning, in the church, a lot of people look at somebody that's been divorced as damaged goods, and we don't want to, we're all saved in here. We don't want sinners in here, right? So, but in order to get a blended family ministry started up in your church, like Carol had mentioned, we train the teachers. We go through it. We do it 3 times a year. It's like semesters. And most churches send somebody to our class here. They go through the whole thing. They get a college credit. They come back again. They get a leadership, because then they help us. Like one of the classes, they help us teach it, so we can see if they have a gift for teaching. And if they do, then the next time, if they do it a 3rd time, then they get a teaching certificate and another credit hour. But after that, then it's like, hey, go for it. You can do a small group. You can do a class. Either way, it's set up, because we have the curriculum, like the student workbook, and we have a leader's manual that has the answers. Right? Every chapter has questions at the end. The leader's manual has the answers to the questions. It's basically things to focus on. It's not identical, but it's like, focus on these things when you're teaching this lesson, and then here's the answers, that kind of thing. Let's see, what else? So we have the beyond divorce, we have the premarital, we have the blended families, we have regular, postmarital. But it's really set up pretty easy. We started with 6 people. The very first class we ever did only had 6 people in it, and 2 of them quit. but we had it up to 60. So most of the time it could be anywhere from 15 to 30.
Yeah.
You know. And nowadays we go live on Facebook, on our ministry page. This one.
It's also on the bottom of the page.
Yeah, that's on here. So when we teach, we go live on Facebook. And then I just take pictures of the notes on the board and put that out there. We're also doing our stuff on ChristianLivingRadio.com. That's on there. Want to do the Q&A?
Yeah, lead up to that. But I just wanted to, it kind of came to me this morning when I knew we were going to be speaking. And I've done this, but I know it's not exactly the way God wants it to be. But when you're in ministry, you sometimes want to be blessed because you're doing something for God. But we really should be looking, how can we bless others? And what better way to bless others than to try to help them get their house in order with God at the head where it belongs. But we get calls now, like Larry said, we're going into the 9th year. We've been doing this, and we were asked by our church to write something for blended families. So we wrote the first curriculum. Before we even, and it's a 12-week thing, most of them are 12, Beyond Divorce is a 10-week. Before we even, I think got halfway, one of the pastors said, I want you to write something for premarital for blended families. Because people don't have a clue how the exes are going to cause problems, how the kids are going to be upset. How come you have my dad 5 days a week and I only see him every other month? You know, those kind of things, those issues that people don't discuss. Like Larry said, they're planning the wedding, they don't think of those things. But we know those are real issues. And the same with don't tell my kid what to do. Sorry, that's not how it works. And as we teach in the premarital, they're all our children. And we've had people come to us and say, well, I can get along with her son, but not the daughter. You don't pick and choose. When you say I do, you take the whole package. That's right. The whole package. And we've had couples that say, well, she's really been a pain in the neck, her daughter, and when she turns 18, she's out of here. We had one guy that 2 months before she turned 18, he reminded her every day how many days left she had in the house. I said, how would you like that said to you? Does God ever put an age limit as when he's not going to listen to you? You're always a parent. You are always a parent. Shame on you. People don't think that. And then we've got people that come to us and say, well, I told my mom and my dad I'm going through this class called Blended Families. And they said, where were they 25 years ago when I had you and we were a blended family? Well, we weren't, we didn't know we were supposed to do this. We had no clue.
We did 24 years without being Christians. So it's only been in the last 14 years we got God's way of doing this. So
anyway, so now I'm ready for that.
Okay. Try to throw a bunch at y'all at once, but
I have a question. What would you say you learned, because you said that a couple of times, like we did it God's way 14 years later, or for the last 14 years, so maybe what are one or two things that you feel like you really learned in that process?
Well, a couple of things we learned that we did right when we didn't even know we were doing it right. Like Larry said, when we first got married, as he said, he became an instant stepdad. I had a 4-year-old daughter, a 15-year-old son, and a 17-year-old daughter. He'd never been married before. And actually hadn't even dated that many times. I've been divorced twice.
For joining the Blended Families Ministry program today. This ministry was created to help blended families learn how to use biblical tools that will help you thrive. We are Doctors Larry and Carol Snap, and we invite you to listen to our weekly shows here on ChristianLivingRadio.com and to visit our website, blendedfamiliesministry.org, to learn more about the ministry and all that we do. Thank you, and God bless.
And my second husband molested me.
Christian living.
I didn't want to get married again. But God said, I have somebody else for you. I said, well, you're going to have to bring him to me because I am not going out there looking. And God did bring him to me. And so when we speak now, we talk how Larry said, I knew I was the extra person in the family. So I knew I had to show the kids how I loved her. And that's what we teach. That is what he did. And we did that by mistake. We didn't know that was the right way to do it. And then when the kids would come to me and say, I need a new pair of shoes, or I need this to go to a ball game or something, I would always say, well, let me go ask Larry. Now, I had been a single mom for a long time. I could have just said, here, here's $10 or whatever. But no, I did it accidentally, asking Larry. So it was showing Larry that I was respecting him and letting the kids know we're all included here. It's not just mom and them. It's all of us.
So we were doing Ephesians 5:33 without knowing
we didn't even know
anything about it. So it was like we did some things right. We weren't a total mess. But it wasn't until we started becoming students of marriage, biblical marriage, that we realized, oh wow, hey, God had his hand on us even way back then, and now it's like, well, hey, we got lucky. We did some stuff right, but we did some stuff wrong.
Yeah, we did.
Sure, go.
Our community and where we live, we're in Dallas. We're in the south part of Dallas, and the culture there is a lot of married families that are not legally married. So they reference my husband, my wife all the time, and they're not legally married. So we have just embraced them as a unit, which has been really great because through empowering them and loving on them, and not really even them just seeing leaders be married, there's been a couple of new weddings that have come up, and that's been really exciting. But that is our community. I mean, that I would say 70% of our population is not married legally, and so they run into adversity in assistance, and we've dealt with some homeless people several homeless people experiencing homelessness, I should say, and they can't go to certain shelters because they're not legally married, and so I just wondered if you run into those hurdles.
We do. We teach them at the Dream Center downtown, and they have a lot of things like that there. They meet down there, they fall in love. They've even been kicked out because they're holding hands, and they're not supposed to show any kind of affection down there at all. And then we have couples that come to us, and they're not married. And we just encourage them. We say, well, in God's eyes, God would love to see you guys married if you guys feel you really are compatible, that you're equally yoked, you both believe in God, and, try to educate them, not try to scold them.
Sure.
Yeah. And then we also tell them that there is a reset button they can do. Fast from one another for a while, no sexual relations. And they say, well, I didn't know we could do that. That's great. So, if you just try to educate them with some of those things, that's what we've found, that it really helps.
This whole curriculum is really kind of marriage 101 with step family stuff in it, right? And with kind of the understanding that here's what God intended, here's what God expects. God's grace is sufficient for you, but here's some of the things you're going to. There's consequences, right? The Beyond Divorce class and the Blended Families class really both hit on what a godly marriage is supposed to be. Even in the Beyond Divorce, we talk about here's the whole concept of a covenant, right? Maybe there's been people they're still married, they're not divorced yet, but they're in the process.
So we've saved a couple.
One or two.
Most everybody though. Anymore, I'm going to go back and make it work.
Yeah. Most everybody, it's already after the fact. So, but you know, we have a package that we put together. It's like all 4 of the yellow books, and we have the blended families in Spanish. We're working on the other ones, but basically it's the 4 yellow ones, the blended families, the leadership manual, the premarital, and the pastor's guide, and we throw in the Beyond Divorce book. So it's like a marriage ministry in a box. Especially the smaller churches, you know, the senior pastor just does everything. Counseling, everything. We suggest you get this, and if somebody comes in, they need counseling, here, do chapter, whatever, and then come see me. You do something before I just spend my time. And then it's like, wah, wah, wah. And then they don't do anything. So it gives them some accountability, and you know, it takes it a little off of their plate. But there's tons of scripture in there. I use the old King James just because there's no copyright. But obviously you can use whatever version of the Bible you want for the scriptures. It's all application. Here's the scripture. Here's how you can apply it, especially in a blended family situation. You know, step parenting. There's 3 chapters just on step parenting. So, you know, spousal relationship, vertical relationships, you know, the pyramid, celebrating differences, right? Trying to get people to understand, you know, hey, just because that's how I do it, doesn't mean it's right. You know, apples, oranges.
Are there any other questions or comments or anything? Does any of this make sense, you guys?
And it's better taught by somebody with experience with the blended.
It helps. It's not mandatory. I mean, if somebody has a gift for teaching, that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Of course, we've been there, done that. We have a T-shirt. But if a person has a gift for teaching, they can teach pretty much anything. It does help if they have some experience in blended stuff, you know, dealing with an ex or whatever. Now, I never had an ex, but she had 2 of them, so we each have one.
But we've had pastors call us, which is the reason we wrote the pastor's guide for the premarital, because we had pastors say, well, I'm getting ready to do a premarital, your premarital book for blended families, and I'm not a blended family, but I've heard great things about this book, so I'm going to teach it. But I may have questions. Can you be around in case I'm counseling this couple and then I need to get to the phone to call you? And he did call and asked a couple of questions, and Larry was able to answer him. And we said, well, we will go ahead and write a pastor's guide for that. But, you know, anybody can teach it. It's just having a heart for God and a heart for God's people. We all make mistakes. You know, we're not perfect. The only one that was perfect was Jesus, and they don't make carbon copies. I mean, and we get people all the time go, well, I'm fine if you just take care of her, straighten her out. You know, well, every time you're in the mirror pointing, you know, if you just straighten him out, God's pointing 3 fingers right back at you. And I am just as guilty of that myself, because when we first started counseling, I thought, there is no way I'm going to do what she just told me to do. I'm not doing it. Sorry. I am not changing my station from 99.9 to Christian music. I don't even know where the station is for Christian music. But when I did that, my whole attitude changed. I started changing. I became a different woman. I became so different that my 2 daughters called you, and what did they say to you?
What'd you do to my mom?
Nope, they meant me in a good way.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like, you know, she always had an answer for everything.
Right away.
Just boom, 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 without thinking. And so then it was like, well, you know, she goes, put the other shoes on. for the other person. And it's what? Where'd that come from? Yeah, they said, what'd you do to my mom? She's not the same person anymore. Well, it wasn't me, it was Jesus, But
I like to use props in my class, our class.
Yeah, our class.
Our class. Yeah, that's what we teach. It's not our kid, your kid, my kid. It's our kid. Everything is ours. So when we get people that are having issues and stuff, I said, you need to borrow my Jesus glasses. I have a regular pair of glasses on days I don't really have that much to deal with, but it's still a hard day. And then there's days that, what would Jesus say and what would Jesus do? And that would stop me in my tracks. I wouldn't answer right back real quick. I would think, it was that time that Cheryl, our older daughter, called me, and they have their own chiropractic office, and she said, Mom, you won't believe Tammy was late for work today, and then this other one, she didn't come in until way late, and she had a really bad attitude, and this and that, and she was just rattling everything on, and she said, and what do you think of that? Well, the old Carol would have told her what I thought of that. And I said, well, you know what, Cheryl, maybe they're having a bad day. She said, what? Did you not hear a thing I just said to you? I said, yes, I heard you, Cheryl, but you haven't talked to them. How do you know? Well, the next day she called me, and she said, Tammy, the girl that was late, her mom had a heart attack that morning, and she waited till she got in the ambulance to take off. The other one had a flat tire. So she didn't know how to change the tire. She had to wait till somebody came. So she said, Mom, you were absolutely right. You were right. I guess I need to calm down a little bit. I need my Jesus glasses.
yeah, sometimes you just need that really big pair.
Yeah.
But
that's what I started saying to myself, though, before I would respond. What would Jesus say and what would Jesus do? And that was hard for me because I'm an aggressive person and I spout it right back. But for me to have to start changing that was hard. But you can do it. You can be that new creation.
Christian Living Radio, spreading the good news of Jesus Christ 24/7. Our goal is to bring you a life-changing word through music and diverse programming, like the one you're listening to now. Pastor Kenyatta Goins is the visionary of Christian Living Radio, and he's dedicated to the idea that Christians should even have a more prominent presence in the marketplaces. Maybe you need prayer for yourself and or your family, maybe for a friend. We'd be privileged to stand in the gap for you. If you're listening to this broadcast, click on the Contact Us tab and send us your prayer request. We'd also like to hear from you if you have something on your mind or just give us some feedback. We support many ministries, so maybe you'd like to make a one-time or a monthly recurring donation. We believe that when you sow into these ministries, you'll indeed be blessed. And of course, if you sow into this show in particular, we believe that it's a blessing for you, so please consider sponsoring us. There's a special area under the Donate tab where you can send your monetary gift or call 520-812-6363. That's 520-812-6363 to receive more information about sponsorship. Thank you.
Join the best positive Christian lifestyle movement on the air at ChristianLivingRadio.com.